Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about Florida State trying to fight the NCAA on some recruiting violations that I tend to believe they'll be able to get out of. If they can't, then Alex Atkins will miss the first 3 games of 2024. So it could be a huge thing to watch over the next couple of weeks. But let's get into some quarterbacks and let's talk about some quarterbacks that could flip college football on its head. Some guys that maybe it's a conference that is wide open. Maybe it's if they can put it together the way they have in the past, they can put together a, championship season for this team. And then one guy that just has as much power over the season as anyone in the country in my mind. So let's start with Kyron Drones. He is one of my favorite players going into the season, one of the guys I am most excited to see, and he's on a team that I am very excited to see. Virginia Tech is one of those. It was something that Josh Pate was talking about on his show, and it's something that I kind of grew up during the Virginia Tech domination of the ACC. Not domination, but we're right in the mix for the ACC year after year. We're right in the national mix year after year. Just came up a little bit short. And I guess some people have kind of forgotten that was a thing, or just didn't really realize that that was a thing because you're on a little bit of a younger side. Well, thank you for watching for the first of all, but the reality is Virginia Tech can be a lot more than they are right now. And this feels like the year where a lot of that stuff can be put into action, and Kyron Drones is the reason for that. He is one of the few returning quarterbacks in this conference and is one of the most dynamic and fun playmakers in the entire country. And on top of all of this, Virginia Tech has a very workable schedule. There's a reality where Virginia Tech gets to that Miami game undefeated 4-0. They likely should do that, honestly. If they beat Miami, they could be rolling into a Clemson game at home 9-0 in Week 10. And that's something I don't know if everyone is fully prepared for because it would be game day in Blacksburg. It would be a night game because they would absolutely demand it be a night game. And that place would be on fire. It would be one of the best, maybe the best atmosphere in the entire country next year if that were to come to fruition. And Kyron Drones can absolutely be the guy that brings him there. And if he gets him there, that game could be a defining college performance for him. So he's a guy that I'm watching very closely. Might be one of those that you look up in, week 9 or week 10, and you say Virginia Tech is firmly in the playoff conversation. And if they beat Clemson, then they've kicked the door down. That's for sure. And then you get to Cam Ward in the ACC. This one's obvious to me. Mario and Miami have absolutely pushed their chips to the center of the table. They are ready to go. They want to win the conference. They want to compete in the playoff, and they want to do something that hasn't been done in Miami for quite some time. So Cam Ward is one of the most important players in the entire country. There are tons of things in place at that Miami team. The offensive line is going to be really good. The wide receiver group is one of the best in the country. You have a little bit of holes on the defensive side of the ball, but you added some really good guys like Simeon Barrow Jr., Jalen Alderman came over from Louisville, so you did some very nice things and definitely helped yourselves out there. I think this is a year for Miami that isn't just about 2024. It's about 25 and 26 and just Miami football overall. This could be one of the most defining years for them in quite some time. This could be a year where not only, you ignite 2024 in the next couple of years, but the next decade of Miami football, because you'll find once they get up and once they're really a part of that big time conversation, they're hard to get back down again, that's for sure. But then let's go over to the Big 12 and let's talk about KJ Jefferson. This is one guy that I feel like a lot of people have kind of forgotten about. Did not have the best year by any means at Arkansas a year ago, but transferred over to UCF and has done really well in his spring ball, and they added some guys that will really help him out in the spring portal cycle. You have Penny Boone coming over. You have Javarius Johnson from Auburn. Ajay Hall's doing a walk-on at a wide receiver position, a very talented kid that I don't know how big of a role he will play for them, but definitely someone that has a high ceiling that, if you can put it together, could be a great player for them. He's definitely not someone that, you're super enthused by after what you saw last year, but Gus Malzahn excels with big guys that can run, that's for sure. I think you're remembering who I'm referring to in that, but at the end of the day, he is not Cam Newton. I'm not trying to say that, but it does lend itself to his ability to kind of realize his potential, and I think there's a ton of open spots in the Big 12. Obviously, I think Utah is the big boy and they're the team to beat, and I have very little question about that. KSU is the second team there, and I feel fairly good about that. After that, it's pretty wide open, and if KSU stumbles, things get a lot more wide open. So UCF is one of those teams that, they're pretty far down the list. They're definitely have to make some things happen, thread a little bit of a needle, but Gus Malzahn's one of those guys that can do that. So it'll be fascinating to watch that. Garrett Green is a fascinating guy too. I think comfortably one of the more under talked about guys in the country, and partly because of the other quarterbacks in this conference. They're just insane across the board. But Garrett Green took so many steps last year into running this offense more efficiently and just at a quicker clip, and just made it look like it was incredible, really. And I think if he can continue that, things get very, very interesting for the Mountaineers. It's not just him out there. It's not like they have the quarterback but nothing else. They have tons of guys to help him around. And I talked about it last week. I think West Virginia could be this year's Oklahoma State in the Big 12. And Garrett Green would be a massive reason for that if that were to come to fruition. Let's move over to the Big 10, though, and let's talk about Drew Aller, because this is the biggest and most clear answer, in my opinion. This guy, if he hits a ceiling, could be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, could win the Big Ten, could do incredible things for Penn State this year. If he, does what he does last year, they could be the exact same team, and Penn State fans could be very, very mad around this time next year. But the reality is there are still questions about his game. But the kid's physical ability is insane. His arm ability is remarkable. He obviously did not have the year that he wanted a year ago, and will definitely want to be able to put that in the rearview mirror and keep moving. But the reality is, when you have all of the tools that this kid has, it makes it a little bit easier to turn that corner. That's just the reality. He's one of the more confusing players in the country heading into this year in my eyes, but I do think he has a real chance to hit that ceiling. It's obviously a huge question mark after a year ago, but I don't know. I'm betting on Drew Aller. I really do. I'm buying into the hype again, and I might get burned again, but I do think this kid has a gear that we have not seen, and is going to be just remarkable to watch him hit. And then we have Dylan Raiola. This one's a little bit obvious as well. The Nebraska defense is going to be good. No doubt in my mind, they're going to be one of the best in the entire country. Dylan Raiola is really where Nebraska's season, his hands are where Nebraska's season lies. Got lost in my words there. But if he can live up to the hype, he can be incredible. Like, it's insane what this kid has come into this program, being expected to do. But the reality is, he has the ability to do it. He's built like an NFL quarterback. The arm talent is stupid. And if he can realize that potential, things get really interesting, and not only for Nebraska to get to 9 wins, but for Nebraska to possibly even compete for a Big Ten championship. Because when Raiola, if he can put that stuff into action, right from the get-go, if he can, jump off the page and just light the world on fire, win that Colorado game by a ton, and do incredible things, people are going to start looking that direction very, very quickly. And he doesn't necessarily have to start too quickly, because that defense is going to be so good, but I just think if he's that kid if he's the kid that he was promised to be right away, there's a reality where Nebraska finds themselves in Indy at the end of the year, which would be absolutely wild after the last decade that they've had. But let's get to Brock Vandagriff and the Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky has tons of things in place this year. That being said, they had tons of things in place last year. The only variable that has really changed, at least aggressively, has been the quarterback. They lost Devin Leary a year ago. Definitely not the performance that they were hoping for a year ago from Devin Leary, but still put together some good moments. Started 5-0 and then just kind of tailed the rest of the season. The difference is Brock Vandagriff, in my assessment of players, has one of the best pure arms in the entire country. The kid can do stuff with a football that not many people can do. That's just the reality. He has remarkable arm strength. He can fit balls into really, really tight windows, throw on the run, different arm angles, different platforms, all of the stuff that you want. He can do it. And if he can hit that ceiling that he has, this is an SEC dark horse, not only to get to the title game, but to possibly win it. Deone Walker is one of the best players in the country at defensive tackle. You have Berrien Brown. You have Jamori Macklin at wide receiver. You have Dane Key at wide receiver. there's so many good things about this team. An offensive line that's going to be really solid. That if Brock Vandagriff can put it together, Kentucky's no longer just, a team that is going to win their 8 or 9 games and kind of move on to the next season. They could win 10, 11 games and make some teams very, very nervous, including a Texas game that could be very important towards the end of the year. And then the big time one, Jalen Milroe. This one is absolutely obvious, and he's easily the best player on this list right now. I feel very confident in that. But everyone keeps telling me that they're going to take a huge step back and that everything is going to go wrong for Alabama and they're going to go 9-3 and things are going to tear apart at the seams. And while I don't necessarily think they're going to go undefeated or do anything incredible, there's a variable in this that I don't think people are giving as much love to as they should. If Jalen Milroe takes a step forward, this team is capable of literally anything. If he makes a couple more throws that are NFL level throws, if he gets better at the 10 to 20 yards down the field throws, if he can put some of those on the target and make this wide receiver group that, isn't necessarily at the level that normal Bama wide receiver groups are, if he can make it easy on them, this is a national title contender. Make no two questions about it. Obviously, there are some concerns with the defense, particularly the back end, but I think they're going to be okay. They have tons of guys. They portaled really well at that position that I think they're going to be able to find 5 guys. And if Jalen Milroe can hit another level this upcoming season, people are going to be really upset. I'll put it that way. People are going to be very, very upset because they're going to realize that Bama's not just, Nick Saban. Now, he built a lot of what is going on right there, but it didn't necessarily all leave with him. So it's going to be fascinating to watch that one unfold. I think Jalen Milroe, in my estimation, might be the most important player in the entire country this upcoming year. So it'll be fascinating to watch that unfold. I don't know, there's plenty of other quarterbacks I could have put on this list, limited myself to 2 per conference, but there are some fascinating players, that's for sure. But we're going to take our third break here. When we come back, we're going to do some spring overreactions. We're going to go to the ACC for the first time. We'll do Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Louisville, and then we'll get into some other teams as the week goes on. But stick with us, and we will be right back with some spring overreactions.